Hey everyone, how you doing today? Well, for me, today's been just, I guess, yeah, productive. Looking into all of the different things going on in the news today. So, if you haven't heard, um, well, the last time I checked, Bitcoin is at $95,647.28. And that's after it slid. So there are multiple reasons why Bitcoin slid. Seems like, again, just based off of the news that we have already went over already previous weeks. So according to this article, now let's see here. Let me make it bigger for myself because that just, oh, let's see, it doesn't, seems like it doesn't let me. Let me try again. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and read what I wrote down because it seems like it's not giving me the option to make this bigger. Um, let's see. Wow, I really thought it would let me make it bigger. But anyway, so according to I'm just gonna list multiple sources, but the main one here is Bitcoin Magazine. Um, so, according to Bitcoin Magazine, there was weakened demand, heavy long term holder sell off. So, just based off of that, I'm thinking um, that means like whoever has had Bitcoin, I guess, for lack of better terms, like major players, um, it seems like they have been selling off their Bitcoin. And according to Crypto Quant, like 815,000 Bitcoin. I think it was, man, it'd be great if I could actually see what's in this article. But I think that's referencing to the ETFs. Um, but that I believe was sold within 30 days. And other factors leading to weakened demand is, let me show my face. So, other factors leading to weakened demand, according to Business Insider, high valuations in tech stocks. Another source is investors. So, apparently, like the next Fed meeting is next month. So, there's for me personally, until it happens, it's just speculation to me. So there seems to be less certainty about another cut. And according to investors, I think it's called Investors Business Journal. I could be wrong, but I'm going to um, attach the sources to the description when I can. So VIA X is basically referring to the CBOE volatility index. Um, Now, I'm not sure. I think this is a separate one, the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index, which we've discussed before. Not exactly the index, the indexes themselves, but rather how fear is what drives the market, right? And if I recall correctly, last time we talked about this, it's like, okay, you don't mix that with finances. So, and that was it was a nice reminder. I think I was watching another finance channel last night. I think his name is Smarter Finance Bro or something like that. I could be wrong about that too. Anyway, he was talking about how not like you shouldn't mix emotions and finances together, which I've heard before. But it was a nice reminder. And, especially if you're Christian, you should know not to operate in fear because spiritually, like based off of spiritual litigation, like that's like an open door. Um, and God is in control. So, like, we don't need to be subjecting ourselves to fear and any other spiritual things that comes with that, right? Um, so that means like fearlessly being in the markets, engaging with the markets. Um, and let me see here. Other factors causing weakened demand is government borrowing, of course, according to this article by Investors Business Journal, I think is what it's called. And it, it said something about government borrowing with shutdown resolved and more Fed rate cuts, even though like that still seems to be like again speculation. Um, then the next thing, oh, I want to ask one. I'll just go ahead and ask. So, do you think this Bitcoin dip is normal, um, like normal volatility, or something bigger at play? I'd love for you to participate. um, just anyone watching. I think, you know, part of me, like, I was thinking about just saying it's normal, um, but just based off of the news that we've gone over since I started doing like news type videos, it just seems like there's just other things at play here. Um, Let me just think of some examples. Um, hmm. Like, I don't know about like the details in itself, but I just think like the timing of things is just interesting. Um, like, I guess off the top of my head right now, I'm just thinking about how recently Bitcoin went up and then now it's like basically dipped the past few weeks, if I recall correctly. Um, and how it dipped, like we discussed in one of my other videos, it dipped around the same time that it seemed like crypto companies were looking into the banking licensing. Um, like those are the only two examples I can think off the top of my head. I feel like I'll just learn a bit more about this, the more I look into this stuff. Um, hmm, I think I'd rather think about that more than say any more on that matter. But apparently, according to Bitcoin Magazine again, the large Bitcoin swings aren't driven by small retail investors. Let me see if I can change the so you're not staring at the same page. Um, and I notice they say it's driven by whales, institutions, and leveraged market structures. Um, which now it's kind of like interesting considering how the market is responding, not just to um, layoffs, government shutdown, tariffs, and the employment rate. Um, hmm. Well, I'm just gonna, let's see, this next article. I'll move on because I already, again, I'm not looking at this like the article so I can see it through another device. I'm actually sharing my research today, but it's not like I can actually see it because the font is too small for me, at least. So I'm just going to move on to the next article. Um, so basically, with the tariffs, I'm not sure how much you heard about this or if you heard it at all. Apparently, there are different, um, well, tariff moves going on in South America. So Argentina, Ecuador, El Salvador, and Guatemala. And there seemed like I'm just going to go off of what I can recall. Bear with me, y'all. So, just collectively, it just seems like there are going to be, it seems like it's more so efforts to make food costs like lower. So, certain countries mass produce, um, or actually, it's cheaper for us to be going and importing from them, trading with them because, yeah, I think it's just mass produced there. So like items like bananas, chocolate, coffee. Um, there's going to be certain agreements made with like different types of poultry, meat. I mean, so like poultry, beef, pork, um, and of course, different countries producing different things, even textiles, right? So now I'm just wondering, like, if I could just have matched that. I'm on my phone, by the way, so it's like I don't really want to black out in the screen and like compare, like coordinate how the the new well, I guess we're gonna find out in like a couple weeks from now, but to see how these this tariff the deals with the tariffs and the products associated with it from each respective country correlates to perhaps our own production in the United States. And yeah, that'd be interesting. I'll have to consider. Yeah, I think I'll consider that for another time. I'm not sure if I want to do that now on my phone, but it was just really interesting, just to look at how different countries are, like the different deals that were arranged with different countries or are being arranged. Because again, like we're going to hear more about this in a couple weeks, and in another article, like there just seems to be like this talk going on with Brazil too. Um, so very interesting. Now I don't know the whole thing about what's going on with Venezuela, but I just really think it's interesting how like the countries nearby are making deals with us. Maybe that might be a different discussion. Um, let me see here. I don't see the option to turn the page, so no. Okay, there we go. That's not what I wanted, but I think this is it. No, this is not the right article. Excuse me. It's this one. It says you can see. Oh dear. I don't know why I did that. Oh, I see. I get what happened. I wanted to upload that article, but it just took so long. And yeah, I didn't want to wait that long. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And my next question is, Do you think that people understand how tariffs affect prices, or is it just something we feel without realizing why? Like, right now, like off the top of my head, I really think that people can discern to some extent, the effects of something like, like the tariffs going on basically all over the world. Um, but I think this is just what I think. I think most people don't understand how exactly they work. I mean, it might seem intimidating if you're just watching the news and it just keeps popping up in the on the TV or on your feed or whatever. But I encourage whoever is watching, I encourage you to look into how they work. Um, I need to look into that myself, actually, because they're comparing it to, how many other years ago another president did tariffs what way, however, which I personally don't like. Yeah, I need to learn that stuff too. So it'd be good to actually be informed, you know, about this type of stuff. So when we go to check out something online or something pops up, then it's not like, we're not at the mercy of some platform or influencer feeding us the information based off of their own biases or their own opinions, right? And with that being said, I want to move on to the next topic, and then I think I'll be wrapping it up for tonight. So, the 2K stimulus check. Um, I don't know about you, but what matters more to you right now? Inflation slowing down or more financial relief? Because that was something I came across I was watching Clear Value Tax, and it was his more recent video about the same topic, and I was just briefly looking at the comments, and one of them was that this person said that they'd rather have like the tax, like a cut in taxes or a relief in taxes. I'm not suggesting that I remember verbatim what they said, but they would prefer that. I'm just going to go with cutting cuts in taxes as opposed to getting the $2,000 stimulus check, because some people, according to just based on what I saw, they just it just seems like it's kind of like an environment where even if they got the checks, I came across a comment. Someone thinks that the that would just drive up the cost of everything else, and that kind of that does make me think about back in 2022, because back then, like, people, that was a thing. Like, people were talking about stimulus checks, but I think sometimes people think about the immediate relief without thinking about where that money is, like what the effects of that money is going to be like on the rest of the economy. Because, like, just based off of the events, this is what it looks like to me, right? It looks like I mean, people took stimulus checks, I took stimulus checks, and then people applied for certain types of benefits during that time. um, it was a time, when you think about it, that was fearful for people, even myself. um, I wasn't following God. I was wearing like two masks. It was crazy. And of course, I'm not subscribing to that anymore. Because now in hindsight, I realize not only does fear get to people to the point where they're not thinking clearly, but because of the insecurity, because of the fear, it's like some people might not think about the long-term effects of taking that money, like in the moment, right? Um, and it's been several years since 2020, and look where we are today. Everything has gone up, and I don't remember what the source was. Like, I think it was. I don't remember if it was a video or an article, but I remember just thinking about how someone had said something about the prices having, yeah, when I was doing the video for the food prices, like last year, um, about the food prices rather, it just seems like the prices have stayed up since then. And it just seems like certain, um, whoever's in charge with the food production, it just seems like, it's more about the business side for them. Um, though, rather than running off with my own opinion, I would rather discuss this with an actual person who works at a company that produces food like this, and, perhaps even discuss why the prices have stayed high. Like, because I haven't really seen much go down. Like, the eggs was crazy. The whole situation with eggs was crazy. Like, people were joking about smuggling the eggs, right? But now you see it go down. I think that also had to do with some other type of deal. I don't remember. I think we did discuss this in another live where someone did do a report on, like, I guess, shipping in eggs from a different country, but the whole question was, I think it had to do with whether the eggs were okay to eat, but that's a whole different thing, right? Um, I don't know where I was going with that. But anyway, for me, what matters right now, I think, is more of the inflation slowing down. Um, of course, I'd like financial relief. I'm not gonna kid around and say that I don't want that. However, I understand that the way things are going, it doesn't make sense how it's going to sustain itself. Um, I haven't looked at the debt clock like I did last week, but I mean, it'd be really nice to see, like, the total revenue go up. Um, and I know people have, like, their opinions about the tariffs. I've seen, like, people, um, certain sources just suggesting that, just based off the people they interview, and I'm not gonna say I remember all of them off the top of my head, but I can think of the one instance when I was looking up the articles tonight for tonight's live stream was, people, there are some people who think that the price hikes are because of the tariffs. Um, and part of me, like, I do think there is credibility to that. Um, but I feel like I need to learn more about that myself before I say anything else. But anyway, what's one part of today or tonight's news that made you think differently about how the economy really works? Um, and you can type that into the comment section. That would be preferable. Um, for me, I think that after reading these different articles and, just basically sharing with you what I've come across so far with the information gathered, I'm just learning more and more about, like, it just seems more like I want to be careful not to say systematic. More so, like, I can see how this administration is working in different areas. So, for example, like with tariffs, there might be, I'm just making this part up. It might be accurate, it might not be. Just based off, like, again, I'm just doing this based off recall at this point because I couldn't see the articles that I wanted to share. So, like, for example, I can see how certain deals with the tariffs is to kind of incentivize things having to do with like tech, right? When at the same time, this administration has made deals with like SoftBank, OpenAI, like at the beginning of the year. I don't know how the deals have been going, but like like I've discussed with you guys before, like the whole AI race thing, like people trying to compete to produce like AI, which preferably I would like to be from a country that represents democracy and freedom, as opposed to another way of governance. Personally, preferably, um, and the whole thing with the data centers being built and one area, there's layoffs, another area, I can see how that kind of is creating how things are like just the news that I've been discussing with you. Like it just seems like it's kind of creating this environment that could present job opportunities just in that, like whether that's data centers or an AI, although like people might argue that AI is taking people's jobs. And I can see that too. That's a fair point. Um, but I can also see like the opportunities with that. I would rather look at the opportunities because if I just go along with all the negative, like the negative aspects of it, and just if I just subscribe to every bad negative thing out there, then that would just be really sad. So I'm just going to choose to think that there is going to be opportunities personally. I think it just is a matter of how companies would leverage that. Like based off of their own priorities, they might want to reduce costs to the point where they're not hiring as much people as they would have. So there's that too. But anyway, I feel like I'm just rambling at this point. But I hope you enjoyed tonight's live stream. And again, let me just show this part. This is these live streams are basically us discussing things like from an educational entertainment standpoint. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. I share things about, gold and perhaps even stocks or what's going on in the economy, tariffs and whatnot, but it's not to tell you what to do with your money. No. It's literally Diane Bay Finance. So I'm just going over the news and sharing it with you. And you can also find me on other social media platforms like Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and I'm not really on Threads as much. Um, and if you're interested in discussing your goals together, I am a licensed financial professional, and you can book a call with me. If there are additional questions that, like I've mentioned before, I don't want to pretend that I know everything. I can connect you with someone who does know more than I do. So just know that that's an option. And I will be back here next Friday. Again, still figuring out the timing because I don't want to rush when I'm reading the news, and I want to make sure I'm able to comprehend what I'm sharing with you. So that might be like either 6, 7-ish Pacific Standard Time, or no, 6:30 or 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or 9:30 to 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll see. But I hope you found this live stream informative. And so I'm going to close this out with another question. So, what's one part of today's news that made you think differently about how the economy really works? Yeah, I did ask you that already. Um, but you know, it doesn't hurt anyone to, you know, have that question pop up again. All right. Good night, everyone. And I'll see you next week. Bye.